Windsor, West Windsor districts.
I mean, I think the secretary is, in that last paragraph on page 164, so the second to last paragraph, more compelling it is that the communities in these districts are orientated in different directions, have little interaction. The majority of their tuitioning students attend different schools. That lists where the schools go. Except for their membership in the SU, they have no obvious connections because there's not appear to be any commitment of the communities to create a new definition of us. There is scant likelihood that they will realize potential opportunities of a larger, more flexible, unified structure. More likely, unification would be blamed for any encountered difficulties. So it's an interesting rationale from the secretary.
Yes, it is an interesting rationale. It could describe about a dozen districts that she has ordered should be merged. So I just, again, I'm confused by this. It's certainly true that most Heartland kids kind of go north and west, Woodstock, Hartford, Hanover, as opposed to south to Windsor. But most West Windsor kids, I think, go on over to Windsor and Wethersfield. So it just seems to me like an opportunity foregone or missed by not pressing forward on this. The notion that there's scant chance of definition of us. Well, that's all over the place, that's part of the reason we're getting so much pushback, and it's what Mark spoke about earlier. Let's have the adults catch up with the kids. I mean, we saw that when we were in Bethel about how the students were totally on board with the merging of their schools. It was the adults who were struggling to catch up with it. So I'm just. This, again, feels to me a little bit like the Stowe situation, a missed opportunity, and wonder if we might find a different way.
Oliver.
I think for me, some of the factors cited in the Secretary's report are less compelling. What is more compelling is the fact that they're not contiguous, number one. And number two, it's the tuitioning patterns. The kids are they're oriented in very different directions. So I think we should focus on those two factors, and that's been sort of consistent with some of the other decisions that we've made with some other similarly situated districts. So I think it's less about, whether they can work together. I think that's I agree with John, that's a little squishy. I don't think that's really a factor. It's the fact that they are not contiguous, and not only are they not contiguous, but the kids are going to different schools.
Peter.
Is the Northeast Kingdom Choice District a precedent?
In what way do you want to go?
In terms of choice towns, which may be in going different directions, merging nevertheless.
Yeah.
I just seem to recall in Act 46 there was some anticipation of non-operating districts in the case of Northeast Kingdom Choice not being contiguous. So it was imagined that would be a possibility. Mm-hmm. That's not the case here. We have operating, but tuitioning at the high school level.
John?
Just to explain how I'm probably going to vote on this, I agree with Oliver. I'm not sure that, the two communities can't work together. It does seem a little squishy. It does seem maybe a little bit of a defeatist attitude. But, when we were talking about the principles, which we didn't enact in the end, but one thing that I really felt strongly at in that discussion was this contiguous discussion, that I wanted to see towns that were contiguous to each other really partnered up. It's hard to ignore that. I'm going blind here, but, well, there's an Orange Town between the two. And also the tuitioning pattern, I think, actually makes those communities a little further apart than even that little Orange Town that's in between the two. I think that does have an impact on what I think of as contiguous, despite the fact that the towns don't even touch each other. So I think I would go along with the Secretary's proposal, but for maybe slightly different reasons, and probably for the same reasons that Oliver may go in that direction.
Mark.
I find myself sort of sitting on the fence on this one a little bit because I agree that, we don't want to do any harm. And when we say harm, we don't want to do harm for the kids and their opportunities. And so what we're really looking at is a K-6 program. They both have their own schools. They tuition, which gets to the part of the argument that's out there, that when kids are tuitioning, they're still going to get an opportunity to go wherever they want. So it's about bringing the adults together, and they're already together in an SU. And through the bylaws, you can protect the elementary schools. So I'm really split on this one. Some good arguments on both sides, but I think ultimately it's, what'll come down for me probably will be the, do no harm to the children in the system, and I don't see how either one of the options harms the children.
John?
Maybe I don't understand. And Secretary French, maybe you can clarify the facts for me. Is there some reason why these two districts, Weathersfield and Heartland, cannot be combined into a UUD with Windsor and West Windsor?
Yeah, I think you're limited to dealing with districts of the same operating structure. So as I understand what you're proposing, Heartland and Weathersfield currently have the same operating structure.
Right.
They operate schools and have choice in
Right.
high school. What you just mentioned in terms of merging with Windsor West operates K through 12.
I don't think there's a high school in West Windsor. I'm pretty sure West Windsor,
West Windsor Unified School District has been merged.
I understand that.
They operate, that new district operates.
okay, but
a
West
high
Windsor itself does not have
I'm
K-12.
not sure about the town, but there's a technical person. Yeah, Brett. Yes. Yeah, so they've already merged.
Right.
And they, together, that school district operates K through 12. So that operating structure is operating K through 12.
May I just add one thing? For a period of time, West Windsor students who are currently being paid tuition to attend a different school, those students are grandfathered. But once the grandfathering is over, all West Windsor students residing in West Windsor will go to the high school.
Yeah, so there's grandfathering language, but the structure that exists now, it's an operating K through 12 district of two towns. That's different than the operating structures of Heartland and Weathersfield. So they cannot, under your authority in Act 46, you cannot merge unlike structures.
Okay.
They're part of an SU.
Yeah.
It does note that underneath the Secretary's recommendation, note, however, that if the state board declines to merge the governance structures of these two districts, nothing precludes the board from redrawing SU boundaries in a way that causes one or more of them to become a member of a different SU. So right now, you're looking at an SU with 3 members, if we take the Secretary's recommendation, and you have 3 members, and 2 of them are the same operating structure. So we have the motion on the table to accept the Secretary's recommendation. Questions, comments that people need answered before they are comfortable taking a vote? Or are people ready? Bill?
I'm sitting here listening to the discussion and asking myself, what's the problem we're trying to solve here?
We're trying to remain consistent with our obligations to Act 46.
Well, that's what I thought.
Someone once said that consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds.
The only thing I could see, though, would be, going back to the goals of Act 46, the overarching goal to create a more sustainable governance structure. Perhaps by merging these two districts, you would create one could argue you can create a more sustainable supervisory structure. You'd only have 2 districts as opposed to 3. But I think that's a nominal achievement.
Yeah.
I'm thinking to myself as a school board member who's traveled roads for years, and I don't know these communities as well as some of you guys do, but I'm thinking if we do merge Weathersfield and Heartland, that they will have a single school district, a single board, and if folks are moving in opposite directions, it could create a situation where it's harder for those adults to actually get together.